world's most famous bookshop is moving, but not far, just down the road on Charing Cross Road. But it's a fantastic opportunity for them to design a new bookstore, one which is going to be able to survive and flourish in the 21st digital century. I'm here at an event in the current store with people from across the book industry to get them thinking about what the new Foyles needs to be like in order to make its mark in the future.
We are here because in about 1 year, in the spring of 2014, Foyles will leave the well-worn and well-loved building that has been our home for over 80 years and move next door to 107 to 109 Charing Cross Road, the former home of Central St. Martin's.
So Miriam, where did the idea of this whole event come from?
It sort of arose organically, actually. I mean, we were just sitting in meeting after meeting with our architects and starting to plan the new shop, and it became clear really quickly that we were going to have to do something radically different. And then every time I spoke to anyone else about it, they always offered something new and something interesting and something exciting. And so it became pretty clear pretty quickly that what we actually needed was a big group brainstorm about what to do.
So this is a group brainstorm. What do you want to get out of it? What do you want to get out of it?
I think it's got sort of multiple aims. I mean, the easiest and the most straightforward is that we want and we need as many ideas as humanly possible. I think everyone has an investment in making sure that this bookshop thrives, but also that other bookshops can model and learn from this and follow suit, hopefully. I mean, so many bookshops are doing such extraordinary things already, but we have this unique opportunity of this mega space that we'd really just like to maximize. So obviously we want ideas. We also just wanted to really re-engage as many people as possible with the conversation around bricks and mortar. Obviously, as more and more book sales go online, as ebooks take more and more of a share of the market, which is all fine and understandable. What we really need to do, though, is embrace the assets that we have, and we have an amazing space in the centre of London, and we just want to make sure that everybody's thinking about it in that way and talking about it in that context.
And you're hopeful, positive that it's going to be a good day and you're going to get lots out of it?
It's a good day already. Everybody's really buzzy in the room. Monday was extraordinary. Today is already kicking off really well. You can see people drawing and thinking and laughing and just sort of trying to get their heads around the topics at hand and come up with creative solutions. I think I've already heard that we should have a gin palace, so I think we're doing well.
And I've seen some plasticine already in action.
It's a necessary part of the process.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Miriam. Good luck with it all. It's been fantastic. It's been a really interesting mix of people, and what I thought was fascinating was, first of all, the fondness people have for Foyles, and secondly, we all came to the same sorts of conclusions about what we wanted from a bookshop. And although there were very different ideas, we all wanted a better curated space, we wanted more flexible space, and I thought that was really interesting that so many people from different backgrounds very much were looking for something we're obviously not getting at the moment from some of our favourite bookshops.
We've been discussing discoverability, and we've been talking about how we present books to people in a different way. We've been talking about the sort of people that are likely to be our core customers. We've been talking about how we can use technology to enable them to find the books that they're looking for. And we've been making the point that Foyles needs to pitch itself as the best bookshop in the world, and to build everything it does on the back of that premise.
Well, it's an amazing thing. I mean, what Philip Jones from The Bookseller and Miriam are doing here from Foyles is astonishing, really, because they've had the genius to go to people who love books and who know Foyles and who understand the cultural legacy that's here, and said, how do we take this forward into the future without losing what we've had but gaining what we need?
It's been what I hoped it would be, which is a really positive process with input from an extraordinarily wide group of people, from people with direct experience of book retailing to people who come out of left field and are in charge of entertainment and other areas of the media.
Enthusiasm across the board, and you know, hope. I mean, the whole reason people are here is they don't want bookstores to go away, and they'll do everything they can to change that.
Top three ideas. One was a creche, where part of the fee is a reading list for your child. So if you wanted to dump your children and then browse in the bookshop and then you get something back, but there's a way of monetizing that, obviously, because you're paying for the creche. The second one, I think, would be travel tours. So there's a bookshop in America, there's a woman there who's already started this in America, where they offer, say, a tour of Paris led by a writer. And people who shop in that bookshop or are sort of dedicated to it in some way feel they'll meet like-minded people on that tour. So it doesn't have to be very, very literary, the tour. It's just something that works so far. And the third thing I thought was great was the idea of a writer's room. And that kind of thing exists. I mean, particularly in New York it exists. I know lots of writers in Brooklyn, say, who rent a space. They don't rent a room, they rent a kind of cubicle, and they go and it's silent and they write their stuff. And I think that's a really sensible thing for bookshops to offer.
I think you have a bookshop with a kind of a core stock of books, massive range, the biggest range in the world, and that's your sort of fundamental base of the bookshop. You have as many covers out as possible and you just sort of can lead people around. But then the rest of the bookshop becomes a sort of a space of flows, and you have constant change, and you have art galleries, you have sort of installation spaces, performance spaces, screening spaces, lecture spaces, pop-up restaurants, bars, and you basically just keep it churning over. And the real goal should be is every 3 months you come back to something that is completely different. It's just, you get all of these just unique cultural experiences coming from loads of different areas. But you've always got these books, covers out, and every time you come here you walk away with a bag of books, as well as having a completely unique cultural experience.
You know, you can't really have a fantastic book selling solution for the future without the people being absolutely the centre. And what do those people, what do those experts need around them to not just feel like their job is shoving piles of books from here to there and taking money for them, but doing something more special? Are they wearing gloves, because they're like museum curators? Do they have a fabulous uniform? We also talked about how to bring the customers and possibly also the authors into the experience. So it's not just a room full of books and then there's a place where you pay. Maybe that interaction with the staff and possibly the author is more deliberately social.
One of the things we were talking about was the variety of environments that you might be able to create in a building of the size of St Martin's. There are lots of opportunities there, and we think that there's an opportunity to move away from having lots of relatively similar bookcases, wherein it's the books that are the point of difference, to saying, well, actually we can create a series of different environments that are appropriate to the sort of books that we're selling, and we can have more flexibility about the way that we do that.
I think again, it was an idea about being an exhibition space and how you can actually have a display of books, but also, and also have places to read, sit, or enjoy a lecture by a professor, by a chef, or learn how to cook. So everything, I guess a bookshop could have everything, all sort of events, all sort of people just coming inside. And
there's still an element of the traditional bookshop as well. There may well, in the future Foyles, be normal browsers who just want to come in and buy a specific book and for 5 minutes, and they should be able to do that too. But in the future bookshop there should be silent rooms and kids-free zones, and where the wild things are area for where the kids can go, and writing rooms. Someone even suggested sleeping pods, but I was a bit, I don't know, I mean maybe, but there's the idea that you can live and work and learn in this space as well as read, but books will be at the heart of it because that's the key. When 7 ravens flew away.
A lot more like a museum. It's got to be a space that people can really engage with. And I think a lot of people said that today, and it was certainly what we were kind of thinking about all day. There would be, secondly, and sort of drawing on that, there would be a curatorial element where one would have guest curators. So it would be like the browser would come into contact with a completely different consciousness who kind of would guide them around the bookstore, and there would be an archive of these kinds of bespoke tours. And there would also be I think everybody agrees that there would be a very complex steampunk kind of machine that would shoot books around the room in sort of through a system of pistons and tubes, and that's what everybody agreed on.
What surprised me is how many sort of disagreements there are actually about the direction that things should go. There are a lot of areas of commonality. For example, the idea of a membership of some kind, of a club atmosphere of some kind, has come up from a few different directions. But then equally, and perhaps most difficultly, people can't agree on what to do about digital effectively. Do you just try and turn Foyles into something like a digital business, or do you completely react against that?
A proportion of the market goes digital, a proportion of the market stays physical. Ultimately, when we look back in 20 years' time, it'll be a different market. But hey, guess what? It's a different market now to what it was 20 years ago. You know, as I said about Selfridges, everything keeps changing and Foyles needs to change with it.
You don't need to compete with digital and being digital, because that's what digital does best. It doesn't need the physical. You want to be the best physical experience that people can come in and have. And that may mean that you can use things like a map in the bookshop, that people can use the devices they have to find things, but it has to be something unique.
Been focusing on trying to combine some of the benefits of a sort of bazaar model almost, with concessions in store and getting the best out of other businesses and other business models, with the curation that makes Foyles Foyles, and not losing the essence of the business, not diluting the brand, not diluting the customer experience. And we think there's a lot of quite exciting potential. A lot of it hinges on keeping the use of space very flexible and creating a really interesting physical environment that might be less like the sort of traditional bookshop that we know and love.
Time is over and I know you're...
Reading and owning books is part of how you live your life. It's a lifestyle thing, and the new Foyles hopefully will be a lifestyle thing too. It will be about, you know, reading books, learning about authors, being taught how to write in writing workshops perhaps, curating gift lists for people, and well, just as much as possible around books, but those are at the heart.
We really like the idea of reclaiming the brand space for Foyles and becoming a cultural destination. Although they're 2 points that come into one, they're so intrinsically linked, and one of the things that we're excited by is this idea of Foyles taking its heritage but really embracing modernity, using the heritage. And we like the idea of it perhaps reclaiming this literary quarter and owning it and being the spearhead for a new literary quarter, and then everything else falling out the back of that, working with other stores, curating other stores in-house, reimagining selling on the street, doing a modern interpretation of that with NFC, sort of touchscreen payments. There's some really interesting ideas that we've been talking about today to really add value to the customer experience.
The challenge is to get people through the door and then to spend money, and I think people should be, you know, they need to you've got to communicate with customers so that they appreciate how fortunate they are that the shop is there, and then they should show their gratitude by buying books there.
And if you have this sort of once in a lifetime probably opportunity, you have a new space to fill, then I suppose my one hope as a fan of Foyles would be that Foyles pushes the envelope really and takes it further than they ever imagined they could.
I think we will look back on today, these workshops, and think that not only will it help Foyles, but it will help the general trade. It will bring the conversation back towards bookshops, and I think there will be ideas that we get today that we will see in bookshops, perhaps in different formats, in different variants, but ideas that came out of these workshops that will in the end help bookshops. Miriam has promised that everybody involved in this process will have their photo taken on a wall somewhere in Foyles that will say "We built Foyles," and yeah, I'd be delighted if that's still standing in 100 years' time for my grandchildren to see. These 100 people have been the springboard, and they've been fantastic, but this is just the beginning.